Welcome to the People Behind Property podcast, brought to you by O'Brien Real Estate. In this series, we shine a light on the personal stories, career journeys, and expert insights shaping Australia's real estate market. Meet the agents, the industry leaders, and the voices behind the O'Brien network, because here it's personal. So let's dive into today's conversation. Hello and welcome to the People Behind Property podcast. I'm Andrew Martin, joined by co-host Jason Mudford. Today we've got a very special guest, Dom Bagnato, better known as the Invisible Architect, building up quite a following on social media. He's certainly bold, bright, and it's great to have him here. Dom is an award-winning architect, a successful developer, and now a mentor helping others see the hidden opportunities in property. We're going to hear about his course and everything that he's doing. Dom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Jason. Can I say I love real estate agents, even though it looks like sometimes online I'm bagging them, but it's bagging with love, if that's all right.
No, it's great. No, it's great to have you here, mate. As soon as you walked into the office, there's a lot of energy, and it's great to have you here.
I love property.
Jason, you told me about the Invisible Architect, and I started following you ever since. So you have a lot of great information. So again, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, look, actually, funny enough, I looked at the Invisible Architect. Obviously, the following there was, only 8,000. But I think you just said to us before offline that you actually started with only 200, and now you're at 23,900.
Yeah. In a few months.
In a few months, it's amazing. You've also got a great, obviously, bit of knowledge and content that you actually can obviously resonate.
I'll tell you what one post started all this, which is really bizarre. I was going for a walk at Barwon Heads here in Melbourne on the coast, and I was sick of looking at coastal architecture from Queensland being dumped on Victoria. So in other words, all these people, you've seen it, the white houses, the round curved walls, the timber battens, we don't have the climate for that look, right? And so I just posted, I'm just sick of looking at it. For God's sake, people, do something different. This is Melbourne, Victoria. Design appropriate architecture. Post, right? And it went ballistic. It's like every man and his dog came out and said, yes, we don't want it. So it's just started with that one post, and it just went from there.
What does Melbourne Victorian architecture look like? We're probably already off topic already, but...
But it rains here a lot. Yeah. We've got fireplaces. We wear scarves. If you go on the Gold Coast, where I go regularly, they crave a fireplace. Yeah. They wish they had a scarf, right? Yeah. So that architecture works there, and it looks okay here. It's the flavour of the month, and I know at the moment lots of developers are doing it. It's selling. But my wife and I, we've always believed in longevity, design beautiful, conservative architecture that will last the test of time. And I love seeing projects that we did 20, 30 years ago. They're still relevant, still getting great record prices. So I worry about people that follow fads. Look, I would never follow a fad. So that's how it started.
Love that.
So I've obviously know you from obviously Marie as well, and obviously Max obviously went to school with Oliver, so that's how we know each other from a long time ago. But obviously Bagnato as the obviously business brand, that you have is obviously well entrenched into the Moonee Ponds, Ascot Vale, Essendon, Strathmore. So, but in terms of what you're doing now, you're transitioning to obviously with a lot of information that you have about development. What sort of? I mean, obviously that post started it, but then what's the actual vision look like?
Well, to be really, really honest, I always thought that one day I'd like to teach people the things that I do, because people have always said, but how do you see opportunities when others can't see them, or even other architects? What makes you so different? So I've always wanted to put pen to paper, and then when my son Max said to me, Dad, I'm going to follow in your footsteps, I'm going to uni to be an architect, but I really want to be a developer, I sat down and said, Max, you're going to learn a structured type of course at university. They won't teach you the street smarts of development. You just won't learn it. So I'm going to write a course for you. So the reality is, it started off with him, but just what propelled it to become live is 2 years ago, 2023, around June, I had a near-death experience. Basically, I died in a hospital on an operating table before the operation started. So there was just a series of errors at this hospital, and it really affected me in that life can be taken away from you without you even I didn't even do anything. I just went there to have some minor surgery, and lo and behold, and I had to recover from that for 6 months. But that was the excuse.
But you didn't even get to the operation.
No, didn't even happen. So it was minor ankle surgery, and there were some errors leading up to it, and so they had to perform CPR, get me, broke ribs, damaged chest, had to recover from that. So I almost got angry with the world, and I thought to myself, oh my God, you can never realise your dreams. Someone can take them away. So I said to my wife, that's it, I'm stopping client work. I said I was gonna do this course, so I started writing and writing. It just, like you asked me earlier, it just poured out. I said, where's all this stuff coming from?
Yeah, I asked you about like, have you got the content ready? And you said it's just pouring out.
Pouring out. So as I started pouring out, I'm telling the world, telling people are ringing me, and then it started just getting serious on social media with people wanting to know what I'm doing. But the reality is, I think there are a lot of awesome educators online. They are teaching different tactics in property. But unfortunately, it's like teaching people a piece of the puzzle. You need to know the whole puzzle. So the puzzle for me is, what is the art of property development? How do I find a property, tell a story, project manage it, track its costs? It's a 4-part process. But if you go online, there are gurus teaching you only one of each of those components. So it's a bit like saying to someone, hey, do you want to learn how to play golf? And you go, yeah, no worries. Here's a golf club. Let's go. We'll putt. You get the little ball in the hole and you tell the person they're a golfer. But they're not. You can't go do 18 holes. You haven't taught them the rest of it. Yeah, that's my problem with online education at the moment in this arena. Not enough of the whole, too much of the part. Yeah. So I want to teach people how to fish. How do you do it?
Yeah, and you spoke about about building a community at the back end of the course. Like the course is kind of the front end, and then the continuation of that.
Here's the thing. So I did a shout out to people. Look, if you're interested in what I do, give me a ring. We'll call it a discovery call, right? I thought I was meeting with people online to see if they liked me and wanted to know more about me. But it was the other way around. What I discovered was I thought they wanted this, but they actually wanted this. So in other words, they're craving for a community that will teach them how to not only do the art of property development, but how do I meet an agent? How do I meet an architect? How do I meet a town planner in a safe environment where we all think the same? That little community does exist in several other online worlds, but not the way I want to teach it. It doesn't exist. So then I thought, I've got to change this. Not only do I need to teach them, I have to bring them all together somewhere where they can talk to each other as well, not just talk to me.
Awesome. Take us back to the beginning, like your early days in architecture. How did your career start? Like what did what led you to design buildings and actually develop yourself?
Look, to be really, really quick, I'm one of those weirdos that when I was at primary school, I wanted to be an architect. And that's because my dad took me to do work. He used to work on big subdivision sites. I just loved the big Tonka trucks. Yeah. But I was smart enough to know this is too
So it was in the blood as a child?
It was in the blood, but I knew it was going to be hard work to be that sort of person. So I knew day one. And so I started drawing. I love drawing. But you look back now in life, you don't even know you got mentors until you look back. And so at high school, I was lucky enough to get an art teacher and a graphics teacher at year 7, but they stayed my teachers for the whole duration of school, mentoring me. Not only in school, but outside of school, which was very unusual. But I didn't.
That's quite rare.
It's rare, and I didn't even know what that was. So they would pick me up on Saturdays. Let's go to galleries. You'd be horrified now if teachers did that. But basically, that's how it was. But to cut a long story short, the art teacher, she said, Dom, I know you want to be an architect, you're going to school, but I'm going to teach you how to do artist impressions. I don't know if you guys are old enough, but back in the early 90s and late 80s, you had the Age and the Herald Sun. Yeah. And if people wanted to list properties, they had to pay a lot of money for coloured photos in the Age.
You're old enough.
Yeah. And all the local papers.
I was in real estate back in that day. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Real estate.
We obviously sold a lot of period homes, and they look beautiful, obviously designed that way.
Yeah, but the marketing was line drawings. Do you remember the line drawings?
Oh, yeah.
So she taught me, so I'm going to teach you how to do 3D renderings with ink. So I went to all the local real estate agents in Ascot Vale, in Essendon, Sunshine, Footscray, and I signed up 10 real estate agents. So I became the guy they would ring and say, here are 10 properties we're selling, go draw them, draw me the floor plan, and hand it over.
So Brad Teal, Neil G. Anderson.
I had W.J. Harper, Maloney Pino. I had them all. So to be honest with you, so this teacher mentored me how to teach that. So I went into university earning more than architects, this little agency I had set up. So that was the introduction to say the work. So I met hundreds of real estate agents, and this is an important thing. So I'm now in your community because you're ringing me up. So when university finished, there was a recession in '92. There was no work, but I was earning good money. So I said to myself, I ain't going to work for an architect at half the price when I'm already earning good money. Yeah. So I taught my mate how to do them as well, real estate sketches in Northcote. So he had the Northcote area covered. We rented a little warehouse studio in Carlton. No one knew what warehouses were. So we started servicing agents in Carlton. But here's the thing, the market took off in '92. So we started getting calls from the boys at Chambers Real Estate, Nelson Alexander. Hey, you know that house that you drew for us? Jason's bought it. He wants to put 3 units on it. Aren't you architects? Oh, yeah. So our architecture started picking up. These agents are flooding us with work because they're getting more listings. We're getting more architecture work. So we killed off the floor plans. That was the beginning of the architecture business. But it attracted all the developers that the agents knew. So developers started coming to us and saying, hey, would you guys be interested in doing this? But it was a lot of developers who had never done it before. So they started at zero. So we watched them grow into successful developers. Now, if you're asking, but how did we enter the development world? We're doing architecture for people. Well, you know, if you do work for developers, they're never going to build and design. Well, everything that we design, they'll build 80% of it and they'll leave the 20%, the juicy part out because it saves them money. Yes. We couldn't convince them, hey, if you just take it to the next level, you'll kill it. Couldn't convince them. No. So my partner and I said, okay, we're going to go become licensed builders, and we did. We're going to buy property, we're going to develop our own property and show them how it can be done. So we started doing it. Oddly enough, the developers didn't see it as a threat or in competition with them, even when we're in the same suburbs. They just said, shit, how did you do that? Could you do that for us? So we did it as a backlash to not being able to do what we wanted. Inadvertently, we were, again, promoting our own architecture service because we were building it. Yeah. So it kept feeding each other. So that's how I became a property developer in that. And because these early developers were first-time developers, we had to learn the skill of how do we buy property and compete in the marketplace with those who have money, because we don't have money.
So when did the shift happen, like from just being an architect to deciding I'm going to be a property developer and do it for myself?
So the actual office morphed into 3 categories. We still had the architecture business, servicing all of the clients and developers. Yeah. We set up a building company and a development company. The building company and the development company just did our own projects. We never ever did stop client work.
When did that start, your own person?
So 93 was the start of our business. By 94, we were off and going.
Oh, right, pretty quickly.
Yeah, because the market it was at its bottom in 92. It just took off quickly.
How many have you done since 94?
In terms of developments, my own personal ones, for me, 40. For clients, probably thousands for clients. Yeah.
But 40...
You don't do suits anymore, do you?
No.
But 40 over 30 years, that's like more than one a year.
Look, I sat down to...
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Well, I didn't know I had done 40 until I wrote them down because I was trying to write this course because they all had different strategies. Yeah. And I said to my wife, I thought we only had about 10, but there was 40. But hence, this is really important for your listeners and anyone that's watching. People always say to me, Dom, I've spent too much, I can't find anything. I always say this, 1 a year. Mate, you do 1 a year, it'll change your life. Whether it's 100,000, 200,000 you make out of it, that is life changing. Don't worry about trying to find one in 3 weeks. Even if you spend 6 months and bang, you've got it, you've nailed it. Now you're safe for the next 12 months. 1 a year. That's heaps.
You do, because you've done...
No, I haven't done anything like that. No. Would you have done 5 in 10 years? 3. 3.
But can I say, Jason, it doesn't mean one executing, because there are 3 types of executions I reckon are awesome. So 1 a year means this: I buy a property, I get development approval, I flip it. So I'm not even building. I'm just going to sell it to Jason for a high price. Yeah. That's going to be fast, 6, 7, 8 months. Yeah. Number 2, I buy a property, I cut the backyard off, Jason buys the backyard and I keep the house. That might be that'll take a year. And the third one is I buy a property, I put 6 units, I get a planning permit, and I build them and then sell them 2 years. So there's 3 different types of development.
Developing the backyard though, or you just subdivide it?
But that's what I'm saying. There are 3 levels that you can. So when I say 1 a year, you might do this year just a quick flip. You're not building anything. You're just selling with permits.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah. Then you might do. You know what? I think I'll buy a property, and if I can subdivide the land off, I think I'm comfortable with that because I really don't want to build yet. I'm not ready. Start with that. And then the third one is I found a ripper. We're going to kill it. We're going to build 10 here. I'm going to get my mates together. So as your confidence grows, you start executing. So 1 a year means 1 of everything. So one might take 3 years. One might only take 6 months. But as an average, 1 a year is heaps.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's interesting what you said about confidence. Like there's a psychology behind this, isn't there?
Look,
Talk about that for a second, because people aren't confident because they don't have the knowledge.
No, one of the courses I'll be teaching is a 16-part storytelling course. But storytelling starts with a property acquisition. There are 2 parts in that first part. The first part is this: I find a property. Most people will find a property. They'll do everything possible to convince themselves not to do it, and fear will stop them. Whether it's money or I've never done it before. So I psych myself up. Even to today, 30 years on, I'll see a property. I know in my heart it's a winner. I know. So I talk to myself. I tell myself a story. Dom, you've got this. Dom, you've got this. Don't back off. Do your homework. You've got it. So that's the first story I tell myself. The second story I tell myself is, are you really seeing what others can't see? Jason thinks it's 1 unit. I can see 2. Do you have X-ray vision? Can you actually see that, Dom? Yeah, I'm convinced I can see it. So once I have that, that's the part 1 of the story, what I call the storytelling funnel, right? To overcome that. Stage 2 is, okay, I've convinced myself that I can see it. I convinced myself I can put multiple units. Now I've got to go to Andrew and say, I want you as a joint venture partner. So I've got to tell you a story, Andrew. You know that site there? He goes, yeah, you only get about 2 on there. Yeah, I know, I'll get 6. Mate, you'll never get 6. Let me tell you a story. So I've got to convince you through my funnel, and then you say, fuck, I'm going to back you. You're right. Okay, I'm in. So see, each stage of the storytelling funnel is to convince each party. So I've convinced you now. Now I've got to convince Jason, who's acting for the vendor, to sell me the property at my terms. There's the next story. So everything is a story.
Have you done a lot of partnered developments? Yeah,
I've done a few, yeah. In fact, to be really honest with you, I think it's almost impossible these days to do property by yourself. It's very, very hard.
So you did that earlier too, didn't you? It's hard.
Oh, look, I'll tell you a little story. When I bought a house on the corner of Holdsworth Street and St Leonard's Road, and it was a mirror of the same size block that you had, Dom, on Athol, just across the road from the school there, where you put those 2 townhouses on it. And it was on 340 square metres, 330 square metres. I actually bought that on that development that you did.
You see?
Yeah, and I actually tried to develop it, but I didn't go ahead with it. I did wimp out of it, basically, while you just said, you talked myself out of it. Oh, I bought it for 330, bought it from John Piccolo, sold it for 440. So I held it for 12 months. I just did a quick reno on it.
Yeah, but that's okay.
But that was probably a stage of my first development. But I've watched Dom do it, and you see him at auctions. He'd actually bid with confidence, and he knows something that no one else knows, and that's I suppose that belief.
Yeah, there's a belief there, and there's a bit of arrogance at the auction, and I don't flinch.
Yeah.
You know, and the minute this is probably a lesson to people who because I have people ask me to bid for them, and if you at an auction and you see a couple and they're bidding against you, and you can see that they're nervous, and then the bidding starts to slow down, and they confirm with each other, that is a sign to me you're at your limit. Yeah. So if you're going to go to an auction, you have to have conviction. Really, be. And I've seen some great auctioneers out there that have tested my.
We're both auctioneers as well, so we do see that side.
To test me, and he did a ripper of a job. I was actually representing someone to buy a property. It was Bill Carp, and God, he did a great job for the vendor. You know, we won it at the price we wanted, But I admired him because I'm a believer. The agent should work for the vendor. Don't worry about me, the buyer. I can take care of it myself, right? So I was really wrapped for him. I know this sounds really ridiculous, but it's important that So anyway, because when I went in, I thought, you little bastard, you really squeezed that lemon at the end, right? And he did. Yeah. But he's acting for the vendor. That's the right thing to do.
So you feel like the modern day developer now can't do it on its own, for themselves?
The level of deposits you've got to raise. The banks are difficult in terms of lending money. And plus, I think there's a certain amount of comfort when you're sharing risk with somebody else because you're in it together. So you've got to decide if you're going into development or whether you're a first-time home buyer. Do you partner up with what I call a strategic partner or a non? So what's a strategic? If I partner up with a builder, this is awesome because I'm going to design it. So that's strategic. He's the builder. He's strategic. But we might have a third partner, say it's Andrew, and he says, "Mate, I'm not interested in working on it." He's non-strategic. He can't offer anything to us, just money. Yeah. So having a strategic partner means that if I go and do a project with a builder, he's not going to do a runner. He's not going to disappear. He's going to work more than required. He's probably going to spend his own money because he wants to see it. So choosing the right partner is critical. Now, if two couples get together or people that are non-strategic, they've got to build a strategic team, a great designer, a great builder who will look after their interests, which is what we did all our lives. When developers came to us, after a while, I used to analyse our developers because a lot of our developers have become multimillionaires and they build skyscrapers now. And I asked myself, how did they do it? They came to us, didn't even understand property. How did they go from zero knowledge to doing these sort of projects? It took me years of analysis because I kept looking at, and it came down to one thing. They knew how to build a team. They actually didn't need to know anything. I suddenly realised, oh my God, they came to us because we were gun at getting planning permits. Even to this day, 30 years on, I've never not got a planning permit. Yeah. So they got me. Then I said to them, we need a land surveyor, we need an engineer. I don't know what all these things are, mate. Oh, do you want me to do it for you? Yeah, could you build a team? So I'm building the team for them and they're having coffee on Lygon Street. And so we build the team, we execute the project, they make money, they do it again and they do it again. Yeah. The only thing that changes with that type of client with zero knowledge on day one is that by their third project, they're starting to switch on their smarts and can now identify property. Yes. So if people are to do this, I think it takes them 3 projects before it suddenly goes off. So the answer to your question is build a team.
Yep. You've spoken a bit about seeing opportunities that other people may miss. Have you got an example what that looks like in practice? Like what are you looking for that others can't see? Back to kind of the invisible architect, I suppose.
I'll show you one that's very relevant, and I actually documented this on Instagram. So I appeared at a speaking event telling people about what I do. And so I spotted a property in Ascot Vale, and it was a little property. It was unusual. Most properties are 15 or 16 metres wide and they're very long. Traditional property. This was unusual. This was 30 metres long, but only 11 metres deep. So it's like getting a block of land and turning it sideways. So that attracted me straight away.
What street was that in, by the way?
Sandown Road.
Okay.
So the first thing that I identified was this block is not facing the same way as every other block. And as a clue, width of property always kills depth. So in other words, you better buy a wide property, don't worry about the depth. The wider the better. So it had a house on there. So I said to myself, I wonder if I can fit a second house on there. Now, most people would say you can't. Both of them facing the street. Yeah. Then it had an easement at the rear. It had all these issues. An easement, you couldn't fit another house on. It was close to the street. We would have to break all these setback rules. So I put that all into a basket and said to myself, I believe I can execute this. Now, we won't name the agent, but I just felt maybe they were under quoting the property. Now, that's not to say they were. I just felt.
You felt it.
Not underquoted, because that's throwing them under the bus. I just felt that the quote price.
They underappreciated what it was worth.
Yeah.
So it was a bit light.
I felt that because the median price in that area is 1.2, they were quoting 850. I haven't seen a property quoted at that level for a long time. And I didn't want to waste my time going to an auction. And so I backed out. So on the day of the auction, my wife said to me, "Can you go buy milk and bread?" I said, "Oh, God, okay, no worries." I happened to go into Mooney Ponds, and I just looked at my watch. I thought, it's 12:30. That auction's on. I'll just go and watch.
You were bored, didn't you?
So I get there, and I said to the agent, "Oh shit, I missed the auction." He goes, "Nah, it's on now." And I looked around. There's not one person, not even a neighbour, not a dog, nobody.
Yeah, right.
And I said, "Well, what do you want for it?" He goes, like $50 million. I said, "No chance. This is what you're quoting. I'll give you what you're quoting." And with that, we agreed on that price of $860, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
And I said, "I want 5.5 months settlement." And so he said, "Okay." Oh well, they conferred with the vendor. The vendor came out, and I want a small deposit. So we got what we wanted. And we had some issues, which I won't go into here. But at the end of the day, what attracted me to that property was that it had an easement, it had all these issues. But I showed live on Instagram every week. I posted how I'm going to overcome each hurdle. Successfully had the easement removed. Successfully negotiated the permit for a second dwelling. Negotiated with the neighbours. I showed that live. So instead of showing people retrospectively, "Hey, look at me, look what I can do in the past," I said, "Oh, I'll put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to show you now." And so I showed all of the invisible stuff, which required me to break some rules, but the rules were reasonable. I convinced council, "Yes, Dom, you're right. We'll allow this because in this particular instance, it's allowable." So what we tell people, you can't break rules on every site. Every site is specific. I can't do what I did on that site to the one across the road. It's only that site. So that one's just come through, and that was achievable. Now, if you had a look at that, what did I do? There's a house that was 2-bedroom. I convinced council to add a second bedroom. We obtained permit for another 3-bedroom dwelling. And this is where I say to first-time home buyers, what if they had come to me and say, "Dom, there's a property for $900,000. Me and my mate with his wife, we're going to buy it. He's going to keep the house. I'm going to keep the land," right? So after planning, or if you add all the costs, let's round it off to $1 million. It's actually not the right price, but let's assume, right? So one of them ends up with a house at say 600. The other one ends up with land at say 400. You and I both know you can't buy a house for 600. So they've already got equity of 200. Land for 400. They've already got equity of 200. So there's the deposit for their home. They can go to a bank now and say, "Hey, I've got a block of land," and the bank values it at 600. What sort of loan do you want? 400. So that's what I'm trying to say to first-time home buyers. Too hard to do it by yourself. Pair up.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I was going to say, I think we talked on the phone about this one and about developing your kids or into their first home. Is that a thing that you're seeing?
So I've actually done this before. So a good 8 or 9 years ago, my young brother and sister also came to me in Ascot Vale and said, "We don't have any money," and I said, "But you've travelled the world 10 times. You bought 4 cars. What do you mean you got no money?" "Well, we didn't save for a deposit. We're both getting married. Can you help us?" So we found this little property off a laneway in, again, Ascot Vale, off Kent Street. The property was only 140 square metres, 140. We put 2 on there. 2 double-storey, 3-bedroom dwelling.
Year was that? Could you do that today?
2012. Yeah, you can do it today. No parking, in a laneway. And once again, it's convincing council, "Dom, what you're doing is appropriate." It's not a case of me breaking the rules. They had no choice. What are they going to do with this landlocked land? So it's a matter of council appreciating where I come from. Cut a long story short, we got some budgets together. We had it built, and they moved into their first homes, and they probably owed them at the time $300,000 or $400,000. They had $150,000 of equity, and off they went. Now, one of my brothers went on to buy another home. He just sold that as an investment for $1.1 million, and my sister still owns her investment. Really, what I'm trying to say is, it works, because at the end of the day, when a project is completed, the developer has his 20% margin in there, 25, right? So all you've got to do is take that out, collaborate with someone and say, "We've got 25% to play with. So we can't execute the project, so let's pay Andrew 5% to execute it for us. Can he project manage this for us? Because we don't know what they're doing." So you're still going to get money. So I'm all about people getting together. There's a famous one done by a really well-known architect that designed the Peter MacCallum Hospital here in Charles McBride Ryan. In 2000, she got together, her and her husband, they're architects, 10 friends, and in Paran they bought a 2,000 square metre block of land or house they demolished. They built 10 homes, 10 townhomes. But if you look at them, but once again, I read the article the other day. I pulled the article out and it said this: it's year 2000, housing crisis, people can't afford their first home. I'm thinking, 25 years has gone by and it's still the same language. Yet they did it then. They got 10 friends. Because you're going to bring the unit price down. Once again, it's too hard by ourselves.
Yeah. Your knowledge is phenomenal, and you keep obviously working in the areas that you know, but obviously you would have also a lot of connection with town planners, perhaps as well as council members and so forth, councillors and so forth. What do you think of the real estate agents in today's world in regards to property development? What do you think their knowledge is like? Do you think there's an opportunity for them to actually improve their knowledge around, and then ultimately, if they're working for the vendor, to present homes in a way that would be more attractive to developers?
You see, this is one of my big beefs in life, and we can go on for another podcast just on this topic, right? Yeah. But see, I get calls regularly from agents saying, "Dom, can you do a drive-by? I have a listing appointment. Take a look at this for me. I want to win the listing," right? So there's a little bit of information there I might see, right? Yeah. But then again, it also happens after the listing as well. The thing today is property. You guys have got your hands tied because I know you guys can't, as agents, divulge a certain amount of information because it can be seen to be prejudice, right? So your institute, your license will be at risk because you're telling people, hey, we can put 2 units on there or 3. So you almost got your hands tied, right? So I appreciate that. Then you got your hands tied in because you don't have much of a choice where you list the properties because the listing platforms are dominant. So now your hands tied again. So the amount of information and where you put it, you're pretty much stuck. Would you agree? You're stuck, right? And there lies the problem, right? So the listing platforms for me are just, and the average mum and dad, they're just photo albums. So when a person goes onto a listing platform and looks at all the properties, they just see the pretty pictures. But I zoom in on the photos and I'm looking for a driveway, I'm looking for an electrical pole, I'm looking for all the invisible things, right? Yeah. So I said to myself, why can't there be a listing platform that has other filters other than the filters of 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms? Why can't there be others? Even another filter, renovated, unrenovated, shit neighbours, great neighbours, I don't know. What if there were more filters, right? So that's that. What if the agents had the power to storytell? Met up with Dom, we just listed this house. Dom's opinion, nothing to do with our office. He reckons he can see all of this. So imagine if the world opened up to more information. So really what I'm trying to say to you is, as agents, you can learn from me, but once you've learned that behaviour, you can start to point these out to your clients, obviously, right? You can't go into the marketplace in the listing platform, but you can talk.
There's a lot for them to learn, isn't it?
Yeah. I've been approached by a lot of vendors, advocates, and had meetings with them, and this is the exact conversation. Dom, saw you on Instagram. The amount of properties I told clients were not suitable for them, and now I realise they were. Could you show me through your course the things that I missed, just to give me a little bit of an edge? It's not going to make them architects or developers, but when they see a house like I saw on the coast, where if I demolish the garage, I end up with a coastal property. Yeah. Perhaps they could do that.
Yeah. We came across a quote of yours. It was something like, "Good design pays back in dividends." Not only financially, but in the way that where we live. Can you expand on that? Because I think when we think about good design, if you may be a new developer, not that you're trying to cut corners, but you're trying to.
Can I take that through storytelling?
No, please. That's what we're here for, mate.
I won't name the agent, but he's gonna know it's him. Once again, Mooney Ponds. So once clients understand the power of design and that it pays dividends a lot years later. So when you pay an architect, and hopefully you've got a really good architect, you're paying for the design process at the front end. It doesn't pay it back until the end of the process. And when they go to sell 7 years later, and they get more than the market. So they pay 70 grand to the architect. The market value for everybody else is 1.5. They get 1.8.
Yeah.
70 grand invested. Okay, so that's an example. But I'll give you a real life example. So
it's really time. What you're saying there is that the profits come. It's time in market.
Time in the market, right? So to give you an example, I'll give you two quick examples. My wife designed a extension to a single fronter in Moonee Ponds, period brick house, contemporary edition for a family. They lived in it for 6 or 7 years, quite comfortably. They loved the whole design process. That was their home. Designed for them. So in other words, it didn't have the conventional white kitchen, the stereotypical thing. Designed for them, but conservative enough that other families would see value. The agent knew them very well as well. We knew them very well. So the agent, the architects and the clients, we all knew each other. The agent got the listing appointment to sell it, right? Yeah. And so the agent started having the open floor inspections and started ringing us, and the client saying, oh, you made my life hard. You haven't got a white kitchen, you've got a black kitchen. Instead of having 1,000 people, I've only got a limited pool. The average price in the area is 1.45 million. The client wants 2 million. This is out of control. We're never going to get it. We're never going to get it. So we read the riot act to them, saying,
to the agent.
Yeah. For fuck's sake, don't go after 1,000 people. There's one buyer out there. You've got to find that one buyer. This is where I come down on agents, right? Fucking go find them, right? It's fucking too hard. The agent goes, well, so we had a battle, right? But a healthy battle because we know each other, right? Auction day, 3 bidders killed themselves. $2.29 million. Right? 2.9. So that client went on to get. We've done this.
How much over was it?
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
2.29. 2.25. Yeah, it's in. I'll tell you the address, but can I name the street? Yeah. Browning Avenue, Moonee Ponds, right? Yeah. Now, that's one story. But
John Rello.
Yeah. What can we name John? John, if you're listening, we love you, sir.
James wanted to name him.
No, I just guessed.
No, it's John, right? And John brought the client to us. Yeah. John's a very good auctioneer, but I love John. And John's done a lot of projects for us, so he knows it's going to get a record price. He was just worried about the market because it wasn't conservative, right? But it wasn't way out either. It was just beautiful. But I had a guy recently say to me, hey, I heard you got almost 1.2 for your single fronter in Escobar. I said, yeah, I did. He goes, I didn't use an architect. I just did it myself. I got a record price. I said, what'd you get? He goes, I got 1.3. I even beat you. I said, oh yeah, that's really. What street was it? He told me the street. I said, and who told you about my house? Oh, I was speaking to an agent. I said, really? Yeah, I'll beat you. You said design sells. I said, okay, no worries. 3 months ago you got that? He goes, yeah. I said, did the agent tell you I got that in 2012? He goes, what? I said, 2012. When the market was 700,000. And his face just dropped. I said, design pays. Now, you have to go with an architect that understands that they're designing for the marketplace and the client. You can't go to an architect that does a purple extension curve, really kills the property. But in my heart, I know design pays. It's just hard to convince the client to outlay the money day one and wait one day when they sell.
This is the storytelling piece though, isn't it?
Yeah, but they get two things when they go to an architect. Number one is probably a reassurance that when they sell one day, they'll be, at minimum, the first off the rank in a bad market, but at best, they'll kill the market price. But the second thing they get is they get to live in a really beautiful, well-designed home. I mean, it pays twice. I said to someone the other day, they said to me, we can't afford an architect. And I said, look, when you came to us, you said your budget's $1 million, and you, in your mind, allocated 50 grand for fees, all the consultants. What you should be saying is, I have $1.05 million. Can you design and have my home constructed for $1.05 million, all inclusive? It might be that 100 of that is for architects consultant, and now the construction is only $950, not your million. If you talk to us like that, you're going to get an awesome home. But in their minds, they separate the fee. But if the builder was to say to them, it's 200,000 of joinery, 50 grand of carpentry, 40 grand of plumbing, they don't flinch. But they flinch at that. Because at the end of the day, they don't see all the work behind the scenes. They just see some line drawings, right? It's very hard. But the clients that get it, they keep coming back. And the developers that get it too. There are great developers in Melbourne that understand the power of design.
Of course.
A couple of questions on what's your opinion in regards to maybe modular homes. Obviously, recently we had the lending basically been obviously approved for obviously modular homes. It wasn't, they couldn't get finance on those types of properties. Is that going to be a change?
Well, the reality is, for people that are listening, is that the banks like to lend off different stages of construction, your footings, your frame, because they want to protect their asset. When you go to buy a modular home, up until recently, you're basically saying to the bank, I'm buying a completed home in a factory, and the bank's saying, we can't give you $400,000. It's not even on the land. Too risky for us, right? So the people that were buying modular homes literally had to pay for the home, have it put on site, then go to the bank, revalue, and then get the money. The banks have recently announced that they're now going to lend money on modular homes built in factories, and there's been an explosion in their workload because now people are seeing they can buy a modular home. Now, is it cheaper? It's not cheaper to buy a home. It's just that you don't have any of the rainy days, speed, convenience. It's not necessarily cheaper. It doesn't mean cheaper. It just means it's a different way of speed. Speed is the big one, and speed may be a consideration for a lot of people. So speed can be money in terms of a relationship.
Yeah.
But you'd imagine that, like, if you look at some areas like, say, Sunshine, for instance, it's got like there's a type of home that was modular built years ago, and they shipped them in. They're called railway homes, and it's like they look terrible, right? And then look, do you think that could be a situation, like that people might actually do these things, and the design of some streetscapes will be, to the detriment?
I can't see it really taking off because Australians are conservative. During the 2000s, bricklayers' costs skyrocketed, and so to combat that, like Metricon, we started using what we call Hebel concrete panels. So in other words, they went to Germany and brought them here, and they said to the bricklayers, now stick it up your culo, we're not using bricks anymore, we're going to use the panels, we're going to do all this. Australians love brick veneer. It did bring the brickies prices down, or not down, but to a level. We're conservative in Australia. We want a brick veneer house. Brick veneer could also mean that the brick is rendered, right? So modular homes, I think there are a certain segment that will take that up, but a certain majority of people, I don't think they will. But they'll be kept busy. A friend of mine actually works for a company that does that across Australia, and they're booming. They cannot pump out enough of them.
Wow. What's your thoughts in regards to granny flats and things like that?
I reckon this is an untapped market because Victoria has only just caught up to the rest of Australia. To give you an idea, my brother bought a house in Nidja with a granny flat, only to discover a couple of days before settlement that the person is no longer living there because they've sold it, and the law said he had to demolish it. So there was a massive legal issue. Until one lawyer said, steady on people, they're changing the laws in 2 months. So they sort of worked around that and they changed it. So for anybody that's listening out there, anybody can build an 80 square metre apartment home in their backyard, as long as they meet requirements like you can certain setbacks, certain rules, but you can't then subdivide it into 2 lots. But you can. You can't, but you can, and this is how you can. Well, let me explain. So you come to me and say, Dom, I want an 80 square metre, I want to bypass these rules, I want to have it built as part of a building permit. But we design it so it complies with planning regulations. So that when you go one day, you still have to go through the planning process, you still have to meet all the requirements, but we did it from day one. So we were able to bypass the construction of it, just the building permit, but we planned. Now, if we had put that 80 square metre on the back, just so you can get a second home, and didn't think about the consequences of, can we get some car parking down there? Can we have this light coming through the right spots? Are we overshadowed? If we didn't think of any of that, and then we went to apply, the council would say it doesn't meet any of the codes. Bad luck. You should have done it. You should have put it on the land the right way. So that, and having said all that, coupled with a shortage of housing, first-time home buyers, and multi-generational families where the kids need to stay home longer, I think it's the biggest win. I don't understand why more people aren't doing it as a development. I think it's a fantastic idea.
So you don't need a council permit at all?
But you've got to meet You got to meet the codes. Yeah. Having said all that, you probably already know that in July of this year they changed two big things in Victoria, and one is they've changed multi-unit housing. They've relaxed some of the guidelines to get in permits through a council, and have taken certain appeal rights from neighbours. So in other words, if the developer meets, I can't remember how many guidelines, 12 or 13, if they meet all the guidelines and they submit it, objectors can still object to the council, but they can't take it to VCAT on a frivolous item.
Right. The NIMBYs.
So in other words,
not in my backyard.
Not in my backyard. So if the neighbour says, I'm objecting on car parking, but the developer has met the parking requirements. Now, but the neighbour can take them to appeal if any of those 13 items they don't comply with. Let's assume the developer doesn't comply with the front setback. The neighbour can take them to VCAT just on the front setback. The logic being that it should streamline the system and get permit. Okay. But I always say, great architects and designers will love that. Finally, we can breathe, we can do good architecture. But unfortunately, when you open the door to great architecture and good developers, the door's also open for shit architects, shit designers, shit developers. And that's where I have an issue, that everybody gets to have a go. And that's what people fear. Now that everyone gets a go, what are our streets going to look like? So I don't think there's enough thought into how they execute that. And the other big one is the activity centres across Victoria that they've nominated. You know, I have friends, family that live in these activities. Basically, major roads like in Essendon, Keilor Road, where there's transport, public transport, food, shops, facilities, amenities. You know, there are going to, well, it's live now, but 8 stories, I think, at the street. But here's the clincher. As it moves from the street, as it moves into the suburb, developers can build 8, 6, 4, 3 levels deep into the suburb. So for the first time ever, it's not the street itself, it's deep into the suburb.
Yeah, they're the 10 that's been named. There's 60.
There's 90, I think.
I thought
There could be less.
There's 10 now, and there's going to be 25, I believe, at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Any speculation of what areas they might be?
No, everyone's asking. But what you'll start to see now are two things happening. I've had people call me in tears. I have a home, I renovated, I love it, I live there, and I've been told there could be a 6-story building next door. Yeah, there can be. So that's that person. But then you've got other people saying, you know what? I have to face the fact that one day it's going to happen. So they're getting together with their neighbours, and you would have seen this, listing multiple properties, 4 or 5 in a row, because they're saying to themselves, rather than protest, I can't stop this beast, I'm going to join them, and with my neighbours, we're going to offer our properties to a developer because he can build something even bigger and better. So you're going to see a lot of that happening, multiple properties listed together in a row. Someone asked me, but Dom, when should I leave if I don't want to be here? It's going to take years, decades. You'll see it coming. All I'm saying is, don't wait until they're adjacent to each other and you're the lone wolf, because now what does that law look like? It's going to be a disaster. Personally, I just can't see. But then you talk to people, well, how can I get to live there if that doesn't happen? And there's always going to be arguments on both sides. I don't have an answer other than it's going to happen.
We'll talk about your course in a minute, because we're going to run out of time, and we want people to know how they can contact you if they want to get involved in your course and community. But you once told me a story about council rate notices and council valuations. So I just want to get Dom's view on that. He's got a great story because he's a hustler. Council valuations and how they relate to rates notices. What's your take on that, mate?
There's going to be 2 sides now.
There's probably another whole podcast on this, but I know what Jason does, and I'm just really interested to see.
Okay, so for example, I've got a huge rates notice on our property. Now, if I go and argue that with the council and I win, and they say, all right, we'll drop your rates, we'll drop the value, my asset has less equity in it. So as a borrower of money, I don't want the asset to be perceived to be of a lesser price. So I'm going to have to suck it up and just accept that their values are whatever. I just have to suck it up because I'm going to use you instead of you using me. So that's me. But my father-in-law came to me and said, this is outrageous. my race is too high. Now he's turning 80 soon. We bring that sucker down. We don't need you. You're going to outlive it, right? So that's an argument to fight the cancer and bring it down.
Yeah. So there's two sides to that equation.
Two sides.
Everyone's getting their rate notice now, and they'll notice that the actual date that they're using it's gone from January to July. Have you seen that?
No.
The actual date they're using is moved. They keep moving the date of, in terms of the level of what they use to actually determine the value of it. But I know what you're saying, Andrew, with all that, and I'm a holder, so I don't sell it.
Yeah.
So therefore,
doesn't
long
matter
term, it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
yes, so I can.
So what's your take on it? If you're a holder, do you want that value to stay high?
No.
Okay.
Low. So you can obviously negotiate with you got to go. It's pretty hard to do it now, but during COVID, when it was a 2 year, it was a 2 year date. Now it's every 1 year now because they want they've got a 2% cap on the cancer rates, but they certainly makes a big difference. And I think I spent a lot of time on it. I think I saved about $10,000 in 1 year on land tax.
Yes. So it depends.
Land tax and council rate.
Yeah. And there's the other argument. What's your intention for a property? What do you do? Like for me, who's selling, buying, and I need the values up, and then I use the equity. I look at what I pay and what it gives me in return. So it gives me borrowing power, right? Yeah. But then one day when you go to sell, if you're undervalued and the bank says, well.
But they'll use they'll use CoreLogic as a barometer, and if you look at mine, like they're all undervalued, but I know the true value. But because I get a free value, I get a free val from the bank every year. So go out there and have a real look at it. Don't just sit there online and look at it because the values are different. But it's kind of interesting. I think if you're developing as well, that if you bought a block, say for $500,000. This is a while back, right? I bought one for $500,000, in fact, in Tullamarine. And each site value is just under $200. Yeah. So the land tax on that is minimal because it's under $300 each. So it's a great way to invest. And of course, rooming houses don't have any land tax at all.
We should do another podcast. I've been going to Queensland regularly, and rooming houses are quite big there. I think there's a massive opportunity in Victoria for rooming houses, but here's the thing: rooming houses have this terrible feeling about them in the word rooming house, right? You're thinking about some derelict people getting together, but the reality is, why couldn't we do a luxury rooming house? Let's pick Moonee Ponds. In Moonee Ponds, with 6 boutique rooms. It's a boutique hotel. Okay. This is madness. In fact, I can tell you now, that is what I will probably do in the new year. I will do one of those so that everybody is going into a boutique hotel. And for people listening, what does a rooming house mean? It's actually a fantastic opportunity because the room comes fully furnished, internet services, everything paid for. Now, don't quote me on the number, but under $450. So someone pays $450 for everything. All they do is bring food, right? Yeah. As opposed to $450 a week of rent somewhere, get your furniture, pay for water, gas, service, and that all adds up. So I think the concept is awesome. Yeah. So every state of Australia has different rooming house codes, but the word rooming house is just a shocking word. That's the problem with it.
Yeah. Look, before we finish up, and
where to find me?
What's that?
Where to find me?
Yeah. No, let's talk about your course because you mentioned out in the kitchen there you hadn't developed for about 12 months.
Well, I bought property, got planning approval.
Yeah. So they're in process.
So when the year kicks over, back.
So tell us about this course because I think it's after our listeners listen to this, they're going to realise there's a lot more I need to learn. So tell us what this course offers, and even the 4 main modules that you're going to be covering, and the community that you're building, and then you can tell us how people can sign up and get in touch with it.
I originally thought that there were multiple types of people out there wanting to learn different aspects of property development. Like a first-time home buyer would do it once, so teach me how to do it once, I never want to see you again, Dom. Or an investor, Dom, I'm not interested in anything other than investing, I don't care about aesthetics. So I thought that was another type. And then I thought real estate agents was another market. So I was going to write all these courses for all these people when I suddenly realised, when I analysed my projects, that really there's no such thing as a beginner's course in property. You buy a property, mate, you're off and running. There is no such thing. So for me, it's about teaching people the art of property development. And the art of property development is I've got to teach you how to identify opportunities like I do that are invisible. Once you learn that skill, you will find the property. But finding the property won't help you execute because you don't know what you're doing. Having said that, I'm going to teach you the powerful storytelling course, which is stories that you tell yourself, the people, branding the building basically. So storytelling. Then I'm going to teach you how to project manage it and execute it, whether you do or you hire someone. And the fourth course, of course, is tracking your costs. Once I teach you those 4 items, you will be able to execute anything, a renovation, a development, anything to do with property. It's a 4-part process. So 4 courses, 1 entry fee into the community, and you're in. And that's going to launch in the next 6 to 8 weeks. At the moment, you'll find me on Instagram, the.invisible.architect. There, I'm giving away all my learnings as you go, as I go. I'm teaching people what I'm doing. So it's actually live there now in some sort of format.
Awesome. Well, Dom, look, it's been a fantastic conversation. We've covered your early days, your philosophy, your portfolio, where you're headed into the future, and the way that you're helping others and helping them learn to develop. I think it's exciting what you're doing. We'd love to have you back again.
Yeah, I'd love to get back.
Touched, the surface of it really.
Yeah. Thanks, Dom.
Thanks, Jason.
I think you would have inspired a lot of the listeners today. Inspired us.
And we did, because we wanted to do it. We did an hour on this one, didn't we? Because we wanted to give it a lot more time.
Thank you. Look, I don't think people should give up hope, because this concept of pricing being it's unaffordable has been around forever. Admittedly, it's getting worse. True. So you've got to change your tactics on how you do it.
Victorian tax as much, but that's
No.
So the one big reason why, and I could have probably prefaced this at the start to have you in here, was because our purpose at O'Brien is to facilitate people's growth. One thing that I learned when I was in real estate is that the directors of the business, they actually knew so much about real estate, which I wanted to tune into, right?
Yeah.
And same with you, is that people that are in real estate should invest and be developers of some sort. It's the best way for their growth and their net wealth. And that's why we wanted you to come in. And I think anyone, whether you're O'Brien agents or anyone, really should be looking at doing these things with your course, because they will get so much value. Absolutely. You can never. It will take them 20 years to learn that information.
I think 70 to 80% of my clients, there was a real estate agent as either a joint venture partner or the client. And I think you're right, they nailed it in their personal life, and they brought that same level of skill into their network. And the young guys or girls or whoever today, and I'm not trying to spruik my course, but if they did my course, it would awaken a giant within them. My course is about fast tracking students of architecture, students of building, students of real estate, or being an agent. I just want to fast track you. I want you to learn it so it'll take it to the next level, not have to wait 10, 15 years. So it's 30 years accumulated into a course that's understandable, because, I don't want to talk technical. It's all about just basic stuff. So.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. We'll drop all the links in our show notes, so that we hope you get a lot more subscribers. Dom, thank you again.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Jason.
It's been a pleasure and having you on the People Behind Property podcast.
Well done, guys. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you.